Good to go?
All right, call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Everybody rise for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's do a roll call. Alicia, please.
Steve Digalow.
Here.
Corey Miller.
Here.
Ian McDonald. Lori Galargen. Here. Bruce Galargen.
Here.
Danny Erickson. Here. Matt Pucall.
All right, we have the district mission below the core values. Everybody should be reviewing those as we review the agenda. Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Is there anybody who would like to make a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. Okay, we have one public comment. Bradford Lee.
As you heard, my name is Bradford Lee. I'm a resident at 349 153rd Avenue, Somerset. I'm a substitute teacher for middle and high school here at Somerset, chaperone for our ski club, and a member of the wellness committee, and a grandpa. So I'd like to first congratulate Dr. Grambaugh, and I recommend anyone, certainly any retiree with a lot of time on their hands, consider substitute teaching. It's been a great experience, and I gotta say I like it when they yell out Mr. Lee down the hallway. But what brings me here tonight is a wellness report on your agenda. As a wellness committee member, I attended the September 24th meeting mentioned in the report. As you review the report, keep in mind we had half the members present in that meeting, and it lasted no longer than 30 minutes. I was quite surprised in reading the report, learning for the first time of the work we discussed and the tasks that were completed. I can honestly say that I do not recall our discussing most of the bullet points on the report. I do recall our committee leader commenting a couple ideas about improving staff health. What we failed to discuss was how to promote, educate, create opportunities for the health and wellness of our students. I've read and thoroughly understood our wellness policy. As a substitute teacher, I know we're not in compliance with Policy 8000. I agree with the report where it states we do not need to make any changes to the policy. But I would have added, we need to follow the policy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. All right. All right, next item, the athletics and activities update. Troy?
All right. Yeah, if you would, that'd be good. Let's go right down the line. So just starting off with the WIAA renewal, this is an annual thing we do. It's pretty clear cut. In order to be a part of our association, the Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association, we need school board approval. There's all this athletics we offer, and this is at no cost to the district as the WIAA waived membership fees back in 2014. So, any questions about that? Okay. Next, we're going to go through the extracurricular document for the 2025-26 school year. We'll just kind of scroll through. Page 1 is just obviously the year update, but then you'll see the fee updates in there. That's what you guys had approved at previous meetings, so that's just reflected in this statement now. That continues there for the group or family fee, individual fee caps. And then that states are changed or are updated when we post our grades and when athletes can become ineligible. Next up just talks about, that's a little bit of a change from the middle school level. The dates now are more consistent with kind of their grade checks, and when would be more meaningful to the actual school year and when athletics is taking place. And then there's just one little, go back to that real quick, sorry. There's one little change we made. Instead of less than 1, it is now a 1 or less in the standardized grading. And working with Mr. Harder on this, we just felt like 0.5 wasn't enough, so we upped it to 1 and below. Again, it's just a grade check that they'll do, and then between Ms. Prochnow, myself, and Mr. Hutter, and then I'll determine any ineligibilities based off of that, but nothing else has changed from that, so. Then the bulk of it comes on our name, image, and likeness. So that is a policy that was added this year by the, past the WIAA membership. So all schools have kind of come up with language to put into their handbooks to have students follow this protocol in place. I'll read a part of it and then we can kind of bounce around if you have any questions out of it. Students are now permitted to profit off of their own name, image, and likeness, given the profiting is not done using a prohibited action, which are listed below. NIL deals contracted by a student athlete must be registered with myself, the athletic director, before competing on behalf of the Somerset School District. So basically what we're saying is this: if they go out and want to profit off their name, image, and likeness, they need to register with us so that we know that they're doing it and so that we can help advise them, is the real reason behind that, to help protect them. Because if they go out and do it and collect money, they could lose their amateur status still. Basically, some of the things that you would read in the, below that is they basically cannot be wearing a Somerset uniform. They can't be wearing black and red, indicating anything that kind of ties them with Somerset. So if a lot of kids played club basketball, club baseball, softball, you name it, in theory they could be wearing that uniform and promoting that club and be getting paid for that. And so it's kind of what's allowed now. Before, you couldn't profit in any way, shape, or form off of that. If you're at all familiar with college athletics, they have NIL there as well, but this isn't anything like college, really. College can really kind of amp up and get whatever they want. This is pretty limited in what they're able to do, which is good. It's kind of a nice bridge between what we used to have as an association and what we currently have. So the Middle Border Conference, we teamed up with a firm to kind of help give us language for a year. We're going to kind of see just some extra guidance, and basically this what we put in here is going to be pretty consistent in any of our Middle Border Conference schools' handbooks. We kind of thought some consistency would help us as we're kind of navigating a new era of athletics a little bit. So again, can't appear in something looking Somerset related, can't appear in anything that's drugs, alcohol related, can't get compensation, can't say you get money if you score X amount of points. Number 4 there, I think it's important to understand that compensation is not provided by the school or persons associated with the school. So anyone who advertises with us, I don't have the schedules in here, but you name it, Countryside Plumbing and Heating comes to mind. If they want to pay somebody to do that, they can't, because they already contribute to our sponsorship. So anyone who's already a sponsor of our district in some way, shape, or form, they cannot provide money to any of our student athletes. It goes as far to say as if you're an alumni of Somerset, you cannot provide financial money to somebody. So it's pretty in-depth, it's pretty hard to do. I really don't believe it's going to affect a whole lot of us here, but it could, and so it's in place for that. I guess I'd pause here. If you have any questions on that, it's kind of a lot, but yet it's fairly clear cut.
So I'm sure you're going to bring it up at the meetings, but I'm guessing if this situation comes up that a business or somebody reaches out to a student, like you said, that they should come to you to verify
Yep.
everything is.
And so, and as athletic directors, that's what we talked about, how do we get that information out? The number one way is get it out to our students and families, and then have them come to us and say, this business, and then we can be like, well, they're already a sponsor of ours. No, they're not a sponsor of ours. This is okay as long as you're doing these things. So that's the piece. That's why that first piece is so critical, that they check in with us too. And again, it's not that we have to monitor what they're doing, but it's to help protect them so they don't make a choice that doesn't allow them to be. And if they were to collect, say they're a freshman and they collect, they'd be done. Like, they wouldn't be able to play ever again. So that's kind of one of those deals, right? So that's what we're trying to avoid, and so I think it's written out pretty good, and I think that honestly, I mean, we'll find out, I guess, but I don't really think it's going to be a huge number of students that'll be collected off of this. This does put us in a line. Minnesota's had this for a couple years too. I don't know if we're necessarily in lockstep with what they're doing, but it does kind of put us as a state close to them. So.
I have a question. I watched the meeting when they were voting on this, and it seemed like there was like some controversy over it. Do you know what that was all about? I couldn't really understand what it was.
Well, I think just some people, just the whole principle of amateur, right? Like, I think some people are adamantly against amateurs getting any kind of money. And high school students and college athletes are amateurs. And so that, I think, is one of the main premises as to why some districts voted against it. And it was this came to the WIAA group a year ago, and it failed. The other fear that came out of this was that if the WIAA, which is all of our schools make up the WIAA, if we don't act, that it's possible then the government gets involved and they start to make mandates and laws are a lot harder to change and adjust than this. So this is step one of it, and so I think, in talking to our admin at the time, we thought it would be good for us to be on board with it because we think we can navigate and have that control, and so we felt that was the best way to go. So I think that's the main debate. I don't really know of any other real reasons beyond that.
Thank you.
Can you explain an example where amateurs get paid to do sports or where it becomes a conflict exactly?
So I would say that, what you name the business, right? Not just a cafe. If they want to put that person's face on a billboard and say, hey, come eat at Not Just a Cafe because this person who's an athlete at Somerset does, okay, that would be an example of that. Now, will that ever happen? I don't know. I mean, nowadays social media would be another way to do it. Now, that's a big way. Like, I just saw, like, we have a baseball group out here, ISA it's called, and they have registrations coming up with two pictures of two young kids on it. Well, in the past, that would be, you couldn't do that, right? Like, their name, image, and likeness is saying join ISA Sports because, in that case, they don't have their names on it, but like, as you get to higher levels, you see a person that's recognizable, like, oh, I want to go to the University of Minnesota because that person plays there. This could be a way of doing that. I want to compete at that facility because this person plays there. Again, there's, high school athletes, if you go to enough sports and enough kids are really, really good, you start to recognize a few faces that people will be like, well, if they advertise for me, they might help me. That would probably be the main way you're going to see it. Again, social media just pumping out that way. So that's kind of it.
But are they actually paying students, advertising
They
fees
could.
and stuff like that? That has happened.
They couldn't have previously.
They couldn't prior to this passing, they couldn't do that.
Right, and now they can.
But now they could.
But there's a lot of.
So you're gonna pay somebody to, in theory, that person's gonna bring in people, right? Like, what are the odds of that really happening? Not very good, but, we're also in a part of the state that doesn't have as much access. You get to the southern, the Milwaukees, the Madisons, there's a little more. And again, I would say maybe not even the schools as much as like all these clubs. There's some kids that play all over the country, right? And so that could be an option for them to be giving money that way. All right, I think we're good with that. I think that's it. Yep. Next is we annually, every year, we try to get out in front of all of our overnight trips for our athletic programs. Trips that are kind of separate from, like, once you kind of get in the tournament series, those kind of are different because if you go so far, you might end up staying overnight for whatever reason. These are regular season events that we have going on. So I'm going to kind of jump ahead and just say that each team, anytime they stay overnight somewhere, that team is responsible for the hotel cost. Anytime that they travel to a point of where they want to take a coach bus, they're responsible for the coach bus above and beyond what we would pay Safeway to take us there. Okay, so in my opinion, none of this has an extenuated pay burden onto our district, right? So start from the top, kind of try to go as in order of when they're going to occur. So starting off in August, our volleyball team will travel to UW Stout for a 2-day tournament. Go down on Friday, come back on a Saturday, or go down and compete Friday and Saturday, so they spend the night. They return on 30th. Question was asked, that's a fairly short trip. Do they really need to spend the night? Bus is going to come back anyway, so it's not an added cost. So on working with Dewey last year on this, he's like, well, the bus isn't going to stay. It would be their option as a driver. If he wanted to stay, he would cover his own hotel and no added expense to the school. As I believe when our boys went, that driver chose to do that. He got himself his own room. Similar boys will go down in December. They will play a 1-day tournament. Again, play on the 6th, return on the 7th. Our boys hockey team travels over to Northland Pines this year. JV and varsity games on Friday, JV and varsity games again on Saturday. So they kind of, in that instance, they're the kind of travel a ways to get 2 opponents. Kind of nice to be able to go that far and get 2 opponents played. When you start to look at our hockey schedules, like locally, there just aren't enough necessarily to get enough games. So that's part of the reason why we kind of branch out that direction. And the competition level, Tomahawk's defending state champs in hockey, so that's a good measuring stick for us. And then boys hockey is annually, since I've, the last few years at least, has gone up to Proctor at the end of December. They play in a holiday tournament up there over 3 days. Then softball and baseball, as you kind of get into those two, especially in the early season, we're just trying to get games for them because we're in a situation where our season starts in March. And usually we're not playing, there's some years we are, some years we're not, but usually we're not playing until mid-April would probably be a safe time to say. And so the softball team will go over to Rhinelander, which has a dome, and they play 3 games that worked out, 3 games over 2 days. It worked out this past year to do that, so it was a good experience for us, so we're going to do that again. Or we'd like to anyway. And then baseball has an opportunity to travel down to Oconomowoc, play 2 games, Fort Atkinson and Pewaukee. I'm going to play at a minor league stadium down there. And then again, something that we picked up from Prescott this past year where they went down to Dyersville, Iowa. If you're familiar with the movie Field of Dreams, that's where they had an opportunity. They're going to practice on that field and then come back up to Platteville and play them in doubleheader on the 16th. Like I stated, all the hotels on the teams to pay, and then they do that through their fundraising of each group. We would, as a school district, we pay the bus what it would cost Safeway to take us there and back. And then there's an example of like the Proctor trip, which was probably the most expensive because it's over the course of 3 days. Cost is almost $5,500, and then you take the coach bus out of it, and Safeway team end up paying $33,000. Yeah. Any questions about all those things happening?
All right.
Nope. Good.
So all these items will come back for approval in 2 weeks, all right, Troy?
That's the plan, yep.
Okay. So if you have anything that comes up in the meantime, just reach out to Troy on any of these 3 topics.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Troy. Next on academic standards, Sarah.
Hi, so this is the yearly notification of the standards that we will be addressing this year. All of the links are in my memo. We use a combination of Wisconsin adopted standards as well as national standards. If the national standards fit better, for example, art and music utilize the national standards. And so this is just a notification of that per state statute. They need to be approved each year by the school board. The links that I've included is what we are required to have posted on our district webpage. And then there's also a link to the Wisconsin academic standards, so you can look at their models out there. What was added last year and what is in now is our WIDA standards, which are our English language development standards for our students where English is not their first language. And those were adopted in 2020 and then now are a part of the English standards that we do teach for our students. So this is the yearly notification.
And that'll come back again at the end.
It'll come back,
Weeks?
yeah, 2 weeks for official approval.
I have a question.
Sure.
Did you say that you can pick between national and state standard depending
Um,
on what best suits?
It depends on what's best suited. I mean, if we're gonna look at a core academic, we're going with Wisconsin because
Okay.
that's what the Wisconsin Forward Exam assesses,
Oh,
right? We
yeah.
would be, it would not,
Makes
and,
sense.
and when you look at like, say, social studies, for example, there's never going to be a national social studies standard that would ever be accepted because culturally we're very different across the nation, and so Wisconsin has its own. But for some of those where, like with music, for example, they look at the national ones because of the performance aspect that are built into them. They also address the Wisconsin ones as well, but they use those as their model template. And so any that we address, we post. So, yep, you're welcome.
Okay.
Oh, I have the next one too, don't I?
Yeah, any other questions for the standards?
Was that the only one that was new? The WIDA?
The WIDA ones were on there last year as well. I just wanted to continue to highlight them because we spent 21 and 22 looking through them and implementing them in 23, and then last year 24, 25 was full implementation. So anytime they do like new standards or revision, you have a year to look at them, you have then another year to work to apply them in your district, and then before full implementation, it's a cycle that DPI has. So if you want information on what that cycle looks like, I can certainly get that for you. So those were new in 2020.
Okay. When you have Wisconsin Standards for Science 2017 and Next Gen Science Standards,
Mhm.
which is national, how do they compete, do they relate?
There's relation. When the Next Gen Science Standards came out, they had an engineering component to them. So we worked to weave in the engineering component, which is also assessed on the Wisconsin Forward Exam. So they kind of work in tandem with one another. But the Next Gen, for example, how they were organized for middle school was very different than the Wisconsin ones. Wisconsin's were cumulative 4, 8, and 10.
Okay.
And the Next Gen ones are cycled like 6th through 8th grade. So that was when those came out is when the middle school shifted their model from an isolated every year to a looping where the kids get an earth, space, and life science every year for a trimester so that
Okay.
they're able to cycle those standards through and go a little bit deeper with them. So the teachers take a look.
Sure. How, do the standards affect curriculum selection at all?
Yes, we want to choose a resource that's going to best support the standards that we're expected to teach, yes.
Okay, so the standards, so like this Next Gen Science organization would have curriculum that they recommend that complies with or aligns with the standard?
So they don't make, a standards is not going to make a recommendation.
Okay.
The people that are creating, because they're usually a nonprofit, it's usually, the National Math Association or something like that, where they're not looking to try to sell you something, they're looking to create what's best for kids
Okay.
and the standards that they need. And so then it's the textbook and the resource companies that make sure that their product meets the standards.
Yeah, the textbook companies know that if they're not aligned to the standards, they won't sell products. So it goes in reverse. Standards are created, then all the
Sure.
big publishers will take those and say, okay, let's put our spin on those standards and learning experiences that we related.
Yeah, so I'm just very much learning, about this whole thing. I found it really interesting when reading reviews about, I picked Next Gen Science, like, it's a new one, let's see what, they're saying about it. And like I've read lots of reviews where they're saying we really like this, we don't like this, or pick climate change, for example. We like that it's up to speed with modern views on climate change. Well, we don't like that it's not up, you know what I mean? There's interesting opinions out there on that stuff. So how do we help our constituents, parents, community understand like how that affects curriculum selection, testing, what the kids are taught? I'm fascinated by that because, you know, I was a big part of my education. I spent half my college education doing solar car and every like modern alternate environmental type science stuff. I was fascinated by the alternative energy economy that's just changed so rapidly. Like what it's actually some of the climate concerns are ridiculous and have, you know, got outphased quickly. So how do we stay up to speed with what's common sense and neutral and what we teach?
I would venture to say that's the goal of every teacher, is to try to maintain the center and not give one way or the other, present as fact. And that's what they work to do. You know, when this, you know, the cycle is up for resource adoption, you do look at that piece. We utilize ed reports because they put all resources against standards and how well they meet them. And they're a nonprofit, so we can depend on their process too. Because it's a big lift, right? And not something our teachers necessarily do not have the time to do. Not necessarily, they don't. And so if we can have a nonprofit out there that can help guide our process, that's helpful.
All right. Thanks, Sarah, and we'll go on to the next one, the snack purchase pre-approval.
Yep. So this one is another yearly one. Just when we have the policy of not purchasing anything through district cards that doesn't have anything to do with an overnight or professional learning or something that's district-wide. We have a couple of instances over the course of the year where we do pull smaller groups of folks together. So our district leadership team, so our building leaders and our PLC leaders, as well as our mentors and mentees. When we bring them together, we do like to provide snacks. So this memo is just information to do so. It doesn't have any greater financial impact on the district, but just following policy 6423. So looking for approval for that as well.
Great. We'll see that again in 2 weeks.
Okay,
Any
thank you.
other questions on that one? All right. Jesse, pupil service report.
Yep, okay, so this is again, just the yearly notification of the seclusion and restraint information. So on the attached memo, you can see just the definition of what is considered a seclusion, what's considered a restraint, how they're kind of individual incidents. So you can see there the total number of incidents of seclusion for this last year was 9. That was down from 23-24, which was 11. Total number of incidents of only physical restraint this year was 12, also down from last year of 24. And then this third bullet point is incidents of both seclusion and restraint. So our goal with seclusion and restraint is to use it as a last resort, right? We always start out with kind of various de-escalation techniques. That might be verbal, that might be redirection, kind of all of those pieces. Seclusion might come into play if we are, you know, just trying to remove a student from a situation where they could harm themselves or others. So that's considered kind of least restrictive intervention at that point. If there is still that concern of imminent threat to themselves or others, that's when they might have to move to restraint. So that third one is when both seclusion and restraint happen at the same time, right, where we're trying to go through that continuum. And in this last school year, we had 3 incidents where both of those occurred. Total number of students involved in incidents last year were 8. Total number of students with disabilities involved was 4. And you can see that obviously the numbers don't match up because certain students might have multiple incidents across the course of the year, but they're only included as one student in this tally. Any questions on that?
No, I mean, that's an improvement.
Yeah, it's positive.
That's good.
Yep. Good. Do you want me to go into my next one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
So 30.
No questions? The next one is just bringing forward the physical therapy. We have a shared contract with Baldwin Woodville and St. Clair Central. Becky Lease is our physical therapist. She provides those services under that shared contract. I did a little bit of digging, she's been with Somerset for 13 years, and in this, she used to work for a different kind of company that we contracted out for, but we've had this shared contract with Baldwin Woodville for 8 years. It's worked really well. We do have a larger number of students that are receiving physical therapy, kind of a growing population of early childhood students right now with some physical needs, and she does a fabulous job. So, any questions about that shared contract? Perfect.
All right, thanks, Jesse.
Yep.
And then we need to approve that one, the contract anyway, in 2 weeks again.
Yeah, that would be great, so I can get it back
So
to
it'll come back.
Perfect.
Again, if you have questions, reach out to Jesse in the meantime. All right, registration, Trent.
Yeah, so I'm excited tonight to bring forth a proposal for a course registration change for the upcoming 25-26 school year. Typically, we bring our course registration changes for any new classes or class changes forward in the early winter. I think this past year was in December. However, as we've gone through our hiring process this year, we've been able to hire a math teacher that has the proper credentials for us to potentially shift from offering AP statistics to a dual enrollment college credit statistics through UW River Falls. So the main difference, and we've talked about AP versus CIS or dual enrollment classes previously at some board meetings. The big difference with this is when a kid takes this transcripted, this dual enrollment credit, they're guaranteed that college credit that is highly transferable to many, many universities versus AP classes. AP classes are highly rigorous, there's a lot of value in those. However, that college credit is really bound on that one test day in May when the kid takes it. If they get a 3 or a 4 or a 5 on that AP test, then they earn the credit for college. And that isn't always clear on how that's going to transfer to other universities, where when a kid takes this class, this one's through UW River Falls, they're able to see, okay, if I want to go to North Dakota State University, does this credit transfer there for math, or does it just transfer as elective? So it's highly transferable. Anytime we can go the route of a college in the schools or dual enrollment class, it's a win for our students and for our families because it's that guaranteed college credit. And we have not been in this position in math to be able to offer this type of a course until this coming year based on our hiring process to be able to secure an instructor who has the proper credentials to do so. This type of course is very similar to the college in the schools classes through the University of Minnesota that we offer. This one would be through UW River Falls because of the partnership that we have with them through this instructor and the credentialing process. The U of M, through theirs, there's certain asks that they have of an instructor where we could do that down the road, but this gets us to that dual enrollment credit much quicker.
I'm really excited about it, thanks.
So what changed in the hiring process that allowed it to happen, or to hire this math teacher? Or did I hear that right?
Yes, so when we hired, the last couple of times when we've hired a math teacher, they didn't necessarily have this certification. The thing that really helps to be able to offer something like this is to have a master's degree in secondary math education, which there's not a lot of people out there that are seeking that degree. And this particular individual has that certification, so we're fortunate to have her.
Great.
All right. Perfect. Thanks, Trent. And then that comes back again?
That comes back, yep.
All right, so we'll have it on our agenda at the end of the month. All right, Dave?
All right, well, thank you. So first thing I want to do is just talk a little bit about the transition and thank everyone. The transition has been amazing. Everyone has been super warm and welcoming, and as I shared in my transition plan during the interview process, that first phase is about listening and learning, and that's what I've been doing, meeting with folks, trying to figure out what their interests are, what they see as the biggest needs and the biggest celebrations for the district, and everyone has been super open, and it's been fantastic. In terms of my next steps, it's taking all that information in. I do plan on bringing a report back to the board to summarize all that I've learned in that listening and learning process to make sure that you understand the themes that have emerged, and so far they've been amazingly positive. I do want to call out a few folks. As I said, everyone has been amazingly helpful, but there's a few people that have been especially helpful. One is right here. Alicia has been amazing. I learned to depend on her already. She's been on top of everything. When we get into the work on restructuring, we'll talk a little bit more about how much she contributes to the district because it is outstanding. Also want to call out both Rochelle and Rod in the onboarding of me. They've been amazing, super supportive. Rochelle was kind of my first point of contact and helped me with all sorts of stuff, getting ready and becoming part of the district. And also want to thank Dr. Donnelly. She's been super gracious with her time, met with her several times, which I really appreciated, answered any questions I had, and we worked through the transition of like opening up an office, all that stuff went wonderfully. Certainly the board. I appreciate the trust you put in me, look forward to working with everyone to collaboratively take Somerset to the next level. It's been outstanding and look forward to continuing that work. Also, just I feel like mentioning this, not that it really has anything to do with my role, but my wife feels the same way. She's felt so welcomed, and we're looking forward to becoming even more embedded in the Somerset School District. So thank you, everyone, and out there in YouTube land, if you're interested in coming in and meeting, please do. I'd love to meet with anyone. That's all I've got on that one. All right, next I have, what do I have next? Oh, okay, the restructuring. So, you know, when we're looking for efficiencies in the district, we often talk about capitalizing on attrition. So someone leaves the district, what opportunities that present for us to become more efficient? And one thing, when I think about that concept, I like to think about the term strategic restructuring or strategic attrition. There are people that will leave the district and their job is critical, it can't be changed, we need to rehire that position no matter what. But there's also times when someone leaves the district and it provides an opportunity to rethink things, and that's what we've done here. So the restructuring of, we're calling it district office because it really extends beyond the business department. But you know you contracted with CISA to do a study to compare our business department and the staffing of our business department to not only conference and CISA districts, but also to like-size districts, because it's hard to compare when you're talking about 2,000, 3,000 student difference in enrollment. So I found the most useful part with the 10 districts that were similarly sized. That average was just over 3.1 FTE for the business department. What was super helpful is I reached out to the folks that conducted that study and they provided some background because the numbers don't say everything. It's really important to understand what are the roles and responsibilities associated with all those numbers and what positions count in that total of that average of 3.1. So we know we were a little bit higher than that, and this restructuring was meant to address some of that. So with Dave Gerberding's resignation, that created a position that we needed to fill. The report said it, and I absolutely stand by that. That position is critical. I don't think we can go without that position. We need that. Really happy that not only that Rod applied, but certainly emerged as the most qualified candidate, and super excited to have him on board. He'll do an amazing job. The one thing that we heard from anyone that interacted with Rod, he will do anything to help folks. He's super helpful, very committed to the district. He'll do a great job. We're not going to replace his position as accountant. Instead, what we want to do is we looked at the roles and responsibilities that Rod had. One of the most discrete set of responsibilities was payroll. Payroll is time consuming. It takes a lot of time to go through that entire process. So we want to post for a payroll specialist, but that person would be working 3 days a week, primarily 3 days a week on payroll. The way our payroll cycle works, there are some payroll cycles where by the time all the timesheets are due, there's like 3 days to get payroll done. During those weeks, that payroll specialist would be just working payroll. They wouldn't have time to do anything else. But there are also times where you have several days in there where they wouldn't necessarily have to be doing 5 days of work on payroll. So Alicia has wanted to go to 3 days a week, and I've said this to a lot of people. I would rather have Alicia for 3 days because she gets more done in 3 days, but most people get done in 5. So it was a great win-win to allow that flexibility for Alicia, the payroll individual then would cover the front position and some of the responsibilities of executive assistant, but essentially we'd be reducing executive assistant from 5 days to 3 days. So with all of that and some salary differential, it ends up for a savings close to $60,000, so just under $60,000, which in FTE is 0.4, but it's significantly more than that because that amount in salary would be more than the FTE of a full-time position. And I don't think we'll miss a beat in terms of the support we can offer, and we'll be able to certainly accomplish everything we need to accomplish. We'll continue to look for efficiencies, not just in the business department, but throughout the district. That'll be one thing that I'll be focusing on. Obviously, we want to increase enrollment, right? That's a #1 priority. As we increase enrollment, certainly there'll be opportunities to think about things differently, but until we've bumped up enrollment considerably, we have to be continually looking for efficiencies because there's not a bunch of money sitting out there for us to have access to. So that will be the focus that I will take on the business side. Rod and I will be looking at that. We're gonna be spending some time talking about some long-term projections. That's something I think would really benefit us, getting beyond just a 2 to 3 year look, but looking 5 years plus and having some strategic plans to address opportunities in that 5-year projection. So with that, do you have any questions about the restructuring in the district office?
All I can say is I appreciate you looking at that right out of the chute and looking at the savings, understanding that we've got the enrollment issues. Take care of that, and then that'll increase opportunities, as you say.
Is this the kind of thing that can be adjusted on the fly if you see the need or someone sees the need?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Positions, but like if you know, it turns out that somebody does feel overloaded or
Sure.
whatever.
Yeah, and that's a really good question, Corey. So one of the benefits of this plan is it offers a lot of flexibility, and I'm really glad you brought that up, because something that everyone in the district office has said, you know what, we want to be able to help one another out. So part of this is cross-training, getting everyone cross-trained so we can do exactly that, we can be flexible. So absolutely, we can ebb and flow based on the responsibilities and the workload of any given time. We want to make sure that everyone in the district office has at least one person that knows the primary responsibilities that they have. So if they're out, we have someone to cover, but also if we just need backup because it's a heavy time, we can do that.
Great, thanks.
All right, I'll keep going. Next one is the food service memo, and this is pursuant to policy 8500, that we go through a process of updating the board on the status of our food service. So as you know, we partner with Taher and contract out their services. I've heard great things about how that's going. Whenever you contract out, there are always hiccups when you don't have your own folks, but the people we have in place are doing amazing work. Deb Reveley, I reached out to her to get an update, because obviously, you know, in my first week, I don't have a really good handle on what's happening in food service, so I'm relying on everyone else. But she was very helpful, gave me a lot of information. You can see that the purpose of this memo is to declare that we are meeting all the standards that are required to be part of the federal food service program. So all that is certainly met. But there's some other things that I think are important to mention. So I asked for some raw numbers and did some calculations. We served 135,765 meals last year. That's a lot of meals. And whenever we talk about something like this, we can get lost in the details of nutritional standards and all of the stuff that goes with food service. But what it's really about is making sure that our kids are nourished so they can learn. That's what it's all about. And 135,000 meals certainly helped us do that. So big thanks to the entire nutrition service department that works hard to make sure kids are well fed with healthy food. So as we continue to look up at food service, you'll see in an upcoming item, we'll be talking about fees associated with that. So I'll stop on that one, see if you have any questions, then we'll come back to food service when we talk about meal prices. No questions? I will move on to the wellness report, and you heard, there was some comments on the wellness report. And what I can tell you is this wellness report is heavily focused on staff, and staff wellness is super critical. Completely agree that we can't lose sight of the student wellness. My take on that, typically, you'll hear a lot of conversation about student wellness. It's usually the opposite, where the staff wellness side gets put on the back burner, so I'm glad that we have this in place. Certainly room to improve. Rochelle has a passion for wellness, and she's done a great job of leading the charge with wellness. When I met with her, she certainly said the way the year ended, there was more she wanted to do, and she's excited about taking the next steps. We did meet with Health Partners and Alera Group, who we partner with to talk about benefits. They have a lot, we met just last week, and they have a lot of great ideas, so excited to continue the work with wellness. One of the things that you'll see highlighted, which I think is really important, is the way we've linked benefits to learning. It's really important that all of us, all staff members that receive benefits, whether that's insurance or some of the other benefits, understand how the consumerism of that works. So it's the way the system is set up, there's certain activities that we can do, and if you do those activities, you can receive a discount on your premium. That is a really smart way to go. It's a smart way to keep benefit prices down as much as possible. We know they are always climbing, but when we can keep insurance prices down, that benefits everyone. And if along the way we can learn things and apply that learning, that's fantastic. So we'll continue to dig into this. We will be getting the wellness team back together and talk about what next steps we'll take going into the 25-26 school year.
In the future, will there be more focus on students? I mean, if you read policy 8510, the primary purpose
Yes.
of it is students.
Yes.
And staff aren't mentioned until the very end.
Right.
So do you see that focus changing for
Yes.
the future?
Yes, and what I'd say is I don't want to speak to it too directly, because I would guess that there was a lot of stuff that happened for student, it's not even a guess. I know there's a lot of things that happened for student wellness. I think we need to think about it a little more broadly to make sure that those activities and the things we're already doing are captured under this umbrella, so we're not sending the message that it is focused exclusively on staff.
Yeah, when I hear the, Bradford Lee's good comment about, if the bullet points maybe weren't comprehensive of some people's input, is there an opportunity to go back and maybe update that with some additional things that whoever might have felt there were some things missing, so we can?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think maybe what we could do with that, Corey, is once we bring the team together, we could do that, maybe a different recap of the year, but then also the plan forward, so we can talk, and this is how we're gonna address things as we move forward. We could certainly do that. Excellent. All right, I'll jot that down so I don't forget. And then moving on to meal prices.
Can I go back one more?
Yeah, you bet.
Like, just, you don't wanna let it go when you hear, maybe policy wasn't followed or
Sure.
some confusion there, like, are we gonna do something to follow up on that?
I will certainly reach out and learn more about that perspective, because I'm not sure where that is coming from, and I'm not arguing that it's not the case, I just don't know at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. All right, so the next one, this memo from Rod on meal prices. If you take a look at the table below, you can see that the recommendation is a 20-cent increase at all three levels for breakfast, and a 10-cent per meal increase for lunch, and a 5-cent increase for milk both at breakfast and lunch. This is just to make sure that we are taking in the funds necessary to cover expenses. Things are more expensive than they used to be, and there's a pretty modest increase. You can see that they are, according to this memo, they are aligned with our comparable neighboring districts. So this is just to make sure that we're not running in the red in our food service account.
So the cost for the milk, that's if they take an extra milk, correct? It's because the milk is included with the price of the meal. Isn't that
I don't know this for sure, but I think a student can also just take a milk, like not take a lunch.
Right.
And do cold lunch and
Yes.
just milk, so if it's by itself, right, not included in the entree, is how I would assume that to be, but I can confirm that.
That would be accurate.
Okay.
That's accurate.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
But if they're purchasing a lunch, they
The
don't
milk
get
is
charged.
included, but some kids will take a second milk when they're
Yes.
purchasing a
And
lunch, and so
what
that's
the
what,
cost is.
yes, correct.
And the intent would be to bring this back in 2 weeks.
Okay. All right, the next one was referendum invoices.
Yeah, so we just have,
Old invoices, just for reference.
yeah, we just have the two in there. One was specific to the overall project, and one was specific to the audiovisual portion of the project.
All right, any other questions from the superintendent report or any of those items?
A lot of those items are kind of on a annual cadence, right?
Yeah.
So do you need any more time than the 2 weeks with some of that stuff you're drinking from a fire hose?
No, I think we'll be fine. Like I said, everyone's been helpful getting the information we need, so, yeah, I think we're okay.
All right, and the next item is policies. Already we were talking about before about it, but if you wanna run through, we could pick one of the documents. I think you had a different one, but we could just start with.
Well, the first
Second
list
one.
is of policies that were updated by Neola that we currently have. And all of these are included in document 1. And there's 28 of them, right? So I'm not going to go through every single one of them. But for example, policy 1100, there's going to be some work done on updating the district organizational chart. In 2464, we got recommendations from Jesse, who also got input from our principals, Trent, Joe, and Pam. And those recommendations for 2 options that were taken are marked in that fuchsia color. And then one of the options was stricken, and again, that was marked in the fuchsia color to signal that they came as recommendations from our staff.
That the one that we're waiting for more information from Neola on.
We
For your
received
clarification on the
more
timeline.
information from Neola on that.
Yes, and he emailed back this morning too. And he said, Ed said that the portion that I was wondering about is in this update because, well, what he said was it was in federal law, but I went through my own research and I found that it's actually a DPI administrative rule. So it's not federal law, it's Wisconsin administration rule. But I still have questions about that, so I'm not sold on that piece of it yet.
Are you working with him?
Yeah.
So what Ed, our Neola representative, said was that it is based in federal and state recommendations, and that if we choose, the language doesn't come from Neola, it comes from the regulations, and if we choose to change any of that, he highly recommends that we get our district attorney involved. So my opinion personally is that we keep it the way it is. The next one that I have notes on has to do with open enrollment. There was confusion in that one because of the placement of the text. That had to do with annual space determinations heading. So it doesn't reflect on the document that there's an option there. That sentence used to be below the numbered items. But Ed says in the update that it's an option within number 3. It doesn't show it like that in our document. So Alicia's gonna be working with Neola on that, because if that, we wanna make sure that we have that sentence included. already. She is recommending that we don't take this option. She's the only licensed staff member in the district. She doesn't think it's a safe option to adopt. When reviewing the standing orders out there from other districts, there's quite a bit of assessment and critical thinking that goes into play with them that doesn't fit well with the way we staff our health offices here. She recommends continuing our current practice of following individual asthma action plans. When my children were at school, they had a nebulizer, and that's what we're still doing, so that if one of our students has the need for one of these devices, the family provides it and the medicine. 5512 had to do with use of tobacco and nicotine by students. I worked with Trent, Joe, Pam, and Troy Wink on this because it affects our athletics area as well. And we are not taking the two options because eliminating them provides more discretion to the administrators. 8395, student mental and physical health services. Danny had some comments written there, but as we met with Ed, one example that came immediately to mind of why we need to include physical health services is because we work with Brighter Smiles, and they come into our district and do dental work for some of our students. So we want to make sure that that's reflected in the policy.
So that's what they mean by physical. I just wonder if it had to do with some of her going to Baldwin or for that physical therapy as well.
There could be you mean the contract that we're?
Yeah, like that was part of it.
That's a school service.
Yeah, school service, and they're here.
So that was everything that I had for that long list of revisions in policies that we currently have. Did anybody have any questions on any of the other policies in there?
What about the lunch? Anything you want to follow up with? Earlier, there was some follow-up after your first comment. Okay.
The next heading, policies not currently adopted. We are going to take 244001. I worked with Trent on that one. He saw the value in having that because of some classes at the high school level that they can take during summer school and earn credit for that. But his recommendation was to not take the options. So that's what we have there. The disposition of personal property, we are taking due to the federal guidelines, and those options were reflected. 7450, property inventory. It's listed here as if we're going to take it, but we are not. So when this comes back, well,
Which one?
7450, property inventory. This is
Special
not
update.
federally, pardon me?
It's in the special update.
It's in the special update. Attachment up above, it's not federally mandated that we have it, and it is not strongly recommended by Neola. We did talk with Dave Gerberding about this, and he didn't really have any recommendations at all for any of it, and it's full of options. So it's our recommendation that we do not adopt this policy. And then we have three policies. Are there any questions on those before we move on to the next category? Any of those three?
You went through all these with Ed and.
Yes. Yep. Yep. The next heading, policies being rescinded. These are being rescinded because all the language in them are in other policies. So for example, 5341, emergency medical authorization, all the language in there is already included in policy 5330. Same with due process rights, 5611, that language is already in policy 111. That's in the special update that's attached above as well. There's a new policy 6111. And the title of it is internal controls. And we're adopting that one and getting rid of this one. And some of the language that is in the old 6111 has been added to other policies in previous updates. So that's why the old 6111 is being eliminated. Any questions on those three?
Are we gonna highlight the two that are, you mentioned, 5341 being eliminated, recommended for elimination? Or is it in the?
The reason we're eliminating it is because everything in it is in a
Yep.
different policy.
Yep, I heard that.
Okay.
I wanna go back and review, is there another version where it's highlighted, where that recommendation is called out?
It's in
Or-
the document one.
Oh, okay, yeah, when you get to the link, it's, okay, yep, I'm going through that, okay.
Okay.
But the reason isn't, right?
I think there is in the comment, I think it's there.
Okay. It seems odd that there'd be two whole sections that are completely redundant before there. This stuff happens.
Well, it has to do with, the updates
Okay,
as they come through.
okay. All right. I'll review it more.
And then the last part was policies that were included in the update, but we're not recommending that we adopt them. I have no idea, I've never counted, Alicia, you probably know the answer to this, how many policies we currently have. And if there's policies that we don't need, we don't want to add them.
I probably have it somewhere in here, but.
A lot of this information, a lot of these policies are addressing things that are in our employee handbook. For example, policy 6620, petty cash, we don't have petty cash, so we don't need that policy. The email accounts, the district issued student email accounts, that's addressed through our student handbooks. So the things that are important, we already have in other places, and we don't need to have a policy to address them.
And a lot of those you have comments in it from Jason or Sarah, right?
Yeah, there were two of them that we ran by Jason and Sarah that had to do with technology. So all of these will, the ones that we're not adopting, do they need to come back?
Like the ones that were not taken previously at other meetings.
Right.
Totally up to you. I just didn't want to not have them and then it wasn't being said that this is why we're not taking them because it wasn't taken in the past. So you guys let me know how you want to do that.
No, I think we need to have the revisions, the updates for the policies that we currently have, so A1. And the ones that we are adding, so A2, 1 and 2, but not 3. I don't think that one needs to come back. The ones that are being rescinded, we should probably list again. But then in item A4, that long list of 17 that we're not adopting and we've never had, I don't think we need to list those again either. Okay.
So I think just looking through this document, there's been, Lori and Danny had some comments made, there was some back and forth with other administrators, so if you're looking through it and you have further questions, you just, I think, reach out to Dave and then copy, whoever else that pertains to, I think, in the next couple of weeks, and if something comes up, we can discuss it again further, but thanks for all the work on this and the back and forth with the administrators that we had, it's helpful, and even, a lot of extra comments on here, so they'll come back in 2 weeks. Again, if you look at them in, next time, I know it's a lot to look at them beforehand, but you can kind of see the highlights and changes if there's issues. Like to get them ahead of, the next week, and give Ed or policy committee some time, or Ed administrator some time to look at them.
Yeah, I like the format, it makes it much easier to review with the.
Yes, this is,
Comments on the
The
documents.
Yeah,
this has been a long
the
time
color coding.
working on it, so thanks Alicia and the policy committee for doing that.
So how does that flow down from Neola? They give their policies, and how do you go through, find, and apply it? Like how does that go? I don't wanna know.
And then 4 hours of talking about it.
Alright.
There you go.
Volunteering for the committee?
You
Glad I
passed
moved. Yeah, it was a missed opportunity.
All right, so, I guess with that, we'll move on to the consent agenda, if there's anybody who wants to make a motion on the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the personnel update and the athletics activities personnel update.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. General information, our next meeting will be July 31st at 6 o'clock, or 21st, sorry, July 21st. And we'll have a listening session 30 minutes prior, so again, board members, if you are able to, sign up for that one ahead of time. If you can, just a couple days so we can get it posted on the agenda, so people know who's gonna be there. And then also, public, please attend, so use that time wisely. And district celebrations, Danny, I'll start with you.
Welcome, glad you're here.
Steve?
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome, and thanks for all the reports, learning a lot still, and getting a good understanding how it goes, appreciate it.
We have a ton of postings on our Facebook page. See, I had this written down on my, the company that we hire.
Social schools for
Social, yes. They are doing a fantastic job. They're posting every day. There's tons of pictures about summer school, and our summer school program is going great. And we just started our second session. So thank you to all the staff who are working with our summer school program.
Yeah, I had that as well. And then, there is a wrestling and golf fundraiser at Bristol Ridge next Monday
Thank you, yep.
at 10:30 registration, noon tee off. If anybody would like to attend, I think you can just show up right that day and
You can,
Sign
yeah,
up.
bring your team of 4, helps to know ahead of time, so contact them or me as the treasurer, so.
yeah, you can go on the website or in the scoop, I think there's a link on it. I'll reach out to Allie Peterson or who's the, Steve? Can't remember, it's S, I don't know his last name. Sam, sorry, Sam, from Bristol. For that, and then, yeah, I think everybody did everything else, so thanks Dave, thanks everybody for attending tonight, and with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, meeting adjourned at 7:00.